On this episode of the Indie Author Weekly Reading Challenge,
be kind to yourself. Especially writers, we tend to be extremely self-critical. The world will criticize you. You need to encourage yourself. My mom, she was a reader. She always wanted to write a book, and she never did because she didn't have enough money. She didn't have enough know-how. There's all these reasons, but the only thing you need to do is want to.
Tag along as author Robert Gadke interviews writers and artists about their books, works, and lives. Be part of the journey as these amazing people pursue dreams of fame and fortune.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Indie Author Reading Challenge. I'm your host, Robert Gadke. So good of you to join us. We have an amazing show today. Today, our guest, L.M. Goodman, the author of Desponia, Goddess of Mystery. She's an amazing lady, a terrific writer, and a really good sport, because one of the things you'll pick up on is that throughout the interview, I am constantly mispronouncing the name of her book. And many other people would have just left and left me hanging there, but she did not. And I am so thankful she didn't, because I had a really great time interviewing her. The other thing that is really amazing about her book, I think, is it's a good entry point into Greek mythology for those of us who really probably weren't smart enough to read it in high school. And I definitely was amongst those, and I didn't read it. I mean, definitely we had some mythology assigned to us, and I think I probably faked it, lied, and tried to get through as best I could without actually reading it, because I couldn't understand it. And this book is different. This is a good story, and you definitely will understand it. And so if you haven't gotten it yet, please do so. You won't regret it. All right, before the interview, a quick update on my situation. It's going to be short because I don't have too much to report, which I'm sure will make most of you excited who are here for Miss Goodman. I will say that it has been sort of a quiet week because I have been able to focus largely on my writing, and I've gotten words done, and I continue to forge ahead in what I'm calling book 2 to the Pursuit of Being Noticed series. I sort of vacillate on that a little bit because it is not a sequel. The Pursuit of Being Noticed, which is my most recent book, very much is a self-contained novel, a standalone sort of. And this book, which I haven't come up with a title yet for, is sort of like season 2 of a TV show rather than book 2 in a series, because we continue on with the same characters and we see how their life has changed since the last book. But it's a totally different story. One of the things that I wanted to do in my next book was have more of a mystery, and I do that in this one. I think it's going to be a cozy, because I'm not real big into writing gruesome murder details. But I don't know if I'll technically qualify for that by hitting all the genre expectations, but we'll see. The other thing that it has is much more in the way of romantic elements. I think that's one of the things I really wished I had done differently in my last book. I put a little bit in there, but not nearly as much as it deserved. Since that book was released, I've really tried to think about what do I like in books, movies, TV shows, what really makes me interested in it. And I think at its core, it's always that plot about boy meets girl, or girl meets boy, or boy meets boy, or girl meets girl, whatever. That's not important. It's the relational love interest plot line that always makes a story better, right? Even if it's an action thriller. I mean, you take your best action thriller and you take away all of that romantic storyline that accompanies it, it's just not as good at all. And so I wish I would have had more of that in my last book, and I am putting it in my newest one. So that's it. That's the update from me. Without further ado, here is my interview with Miss Goodman. Miss Goodman, welcome to the program. We're so excited to have you.
Yes, excited to be here.
Miss Goodman is the author of the book that she's the winner this week, I guess, if, like I always joke, if you want to call it the winner. And her book is, and if I slaughter the title, correct me. I'm always sort of weary when I say this, but it's Desponia, Goddess of Mystery. Is that right?
Close, so close. It's Desponia.
Oh. Desponia. Okay, see, I just didn't think it was right. It didn't feel right. It didn't feel like a good title. Desponia. Desponia. Okay. All right. I'm going to stop saying it. Desponia, Goddess of Mystery. It is a great read. I'm not totally finished yet, but I will tell you that by about chapter 2, I was hooked, I think. So I really, really liked it. The one thing I want to know, though, and this is my question that I wanted to know from the instant that I downloaded it on my Kindle, which is, why the heck am I reading a Greek mythology story, right? Are there a lot of Greek mythology stories in KU that I don't know about?
Well, I started writing Desponia when I was in high school, and it kind of just came out of nowhere. I think the origin story is I was being a geek and I was Googling my name. Not Googling, I was looking up my name in the dictionary. I just wanted to see what my name was closest to. And it happened to be this place called Ladon, which is it's in mythology. And basically I started looking up that place, and then I heard about Desponia, this girl, she had a name, but nobody knew it. And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And so I just started researching, who is this character that I've never heard? I loved Greek mythology. So I knew about a lot of characters, and I'd never heard about her. And I was like, yes, I need to find out more about her.
Do you read Greek mythology?
I mean, I don't sit down and read the Iliad for fun, but I do like to know their stories and what's going on, the different characters.
Because I have to say, this is just me having no idea all the books that exist in the KU universe. But I was just like, oh my gosh, this story must have taken you 300 years to write, because you would have had to read about 10 million Greek mythology books, right, in order to have even any sense of this.
So my favorite resource is Theoe. I might be butchering that, but it's a website online, and it has a lot of the the relics and the different facts about the goddesses and gods, and it was my best friend during the I would say the third or fourth draft, when I was trying to make sure that things made sense. So yeah, it took research, but I do take a lot of liberties too, so that's good.
So you must come from the most intelligent, bookish family of anybody I've had on the show so far, I think. I mean, everybody else is writing contemporary romances, or so you read Greek mythology, right? I mean, did you read it as a kid, or when did you start reading it?
So I'm a little older, just age myself quickly. I'm older than Percy Jackson, but there has always been movies about Greek mythology, and there's kid books about Greek mythology. It's just something that I've always liked. Mythology in general, ooh, there's a dragon, ooh, it's a chimera, I just like mystical creatures and Greek gods and Roman gods and Thor, and just, it doesn't matter which pantheon. I just like mythology a lot.
Well, what amount of readership do you think crosses over between something like Greek mythology and fantasy? Is there a crossover, or are they very different?
Okay, so I hope that there's a crossover. I'm thinking there is. There are Circe's is, Greek mythology is less on the fantasy side, but there is some fantastical things that happen. I really feel like Greek mythology, or mythology in general, is the first fantasy. All these things that are, not real, but are so amazing. So I think there's crossover.
Possible, right? I mean, it's been around for a long time. People have been reading it forever. So tell me about you. Did you always know you wanted to be a writer?
Yes and no. Okay, so I know that I've always loved to write because I've always liked to read and create stories. Did I ever think that I would actually write and publish a book? No. I had a very cynical phase when I was in high school and college, and I was like, I'm going to be practical. I'm going to study psychology and, that stuff. But then afterwards, I was like, I'm still going to write this book.
So do you remember how old you were when you wrote your first story?
No. I know that I completed my first, I'm going to call it a manuscript, but oh my God, it's so ugly. I completed my first manuscript of like a novel-ish size book in high school. When I was younger, I was actually more focused on poetry. I've been writing poetry since like elementary school, but I kind of, and my poetry was very long. So it was like a natural like transition to start writing novels.
Okay. Did you ever write any short stories? Have you done that yet?
I suck at short stories. They always become really long. But I do have a few.
All right. All right. What about your family? Did you grow up reading? Were books always all around you, or are you an abnormal seed in your household?
Well, I'm one of two children. So my mom was an adamant reader, books all around our house at all times. Had my first library card when I was like 3 years old because she used to work at the library. But my sister like hates reading. So I guess it's like a coin flip.
Yeah, I totally understand that. All right, so you are on TikTok, and I see videos from you. In fact, I have to say, I might have said this in my first video, but one of the reasons why I really wanted to pick you is because you had made a video on the Taste of Sweetness book that we read, and I love the fact that you read it, but then you said something like, you might not read the next one because it wasn't in your genre. And one of the things that I loved about that is that you finished it, which takes me, it's kind of a long way to bring around to the question I wanted to ask you, which is you have a TikTok video out there where you talk about the reasons why you might not finish a book.
Yeah.
And I just have to say, first of all, that the fact that you finish most books you read is an amazing thing. So we're just going to start there because I probably chuck a lot of the ones that I start across the room. But you mentioned that one of the reasons you might not finish a book is if, and I might get this wrong, if I get this wrong, correct me, but that if a character is racist without a good story reason, that's kind of my own kind of way I would say it, I guess, right? Because you kind of said that if there's a good story reason, you can buy that. But if there's not, the character's just inherently racist, right? Is that a fair summary, do you think, of one of your TikTok video?
Yeah, so it's one of the main reasons I won't finish a book if there's like, and it doesn't necessarily have to be from the character. Most of the time that I put down a book is because it's kind of embedded into the novel. I think the examples that I gave in the TikTok is like, if all the villains are Arabic. For no good reason. Like if it's like, the Avatar and, there's different factions in different places. If it makes sense, it makes sense, But if there's no reason for it to be that way, it just feels like the author's underlying kind of, let's call it emotional limitations are coming through in the book. And, if I can feel it, it's kind of dog whistly. I'm like, I'm just going to put that aside.
That's exactly how I thought you meant it, that it was, I guess, more coming from the author really, rather than the character, because the character is, I don't know, the fictional character creation of the author. But the question, where I really wanted to go with this is, how often do you see that? That's one of the things that made me kind of wonder, like, how often does that happen to you? And does it happen in any particular genre? That you see, on Kindle more than others?
So, I'm not going to say it happens a lot. I can think of about 4 or 5 books where it was blatant enough for me to just say, I'm not going to finish this. And it's not a particular genre. I've seen it in young adult fantasy. I've seen it in thrillers. I've seen it in religious thrillers, which kind of makes sense because it was borderline. It was a borderline situation where I think if the writer would have finessed it a little differently, then it would have been something that I could accept. But I can't say that it's a particular genre, no.
I don't want you to say the name of the title or the name of the character or anything like that. I don't want to embarrass anybody, but do you have anything that comes to mind, like a scene where you think of when you think of that inspired that video? Because I think it's a very interesting topic, especially as a white guy who writes stories. I mean, one of the things that I always think about is kind of the further extension to that, which is if I have anybody in my stories at all who aren't white, can I even do that, I guess? And you talk about having a sensitivity reader, and I totally understand that if you can afford that, I suppose, that you're doing that.
Yeah.
But I'm just wondering, like, if you could give an example, especially to someone like me, of kind of what inspired that video. Because I imagine you must have been reading something when you made that.
So, okay. So an easy example, one that really comes up to mind, is it was a story where there was an interracial couple, and the way that they described the female who was Black was very food related, which is never a good thing. We don't want to describe people as food or objects, all the time. I'm assuming points when it would be okay, but we don't want every Black person to be chocolate or a cupcake or a brownie. Also, every other Black person in the story was just very, like, negatively stereotyped Black. Like, it wasn't like an even, some good people, some bad people. That's what we want. We want realism. But it was like every other person who was Black in the story was like a thug, a drug dealer, or a drug addict. It was very blatant. And I know the author. I don't think it was intentional, but it was there. Another example is it was a religious thriller, and every person who was what do you call it when the demons take possessed? Every person who was possessed by the demons was Arabic. Every single person who was possessed by a demon in the story was Arabic. And I mean, it's Christian underlaying, so it could be anybody who just isn't a Christian. But that's not what you saw in the book. And I think it might sound nitpicky sometimes, but it's more of a vibe. I think if people were to read this book, but I'm not going to name them, but if they were to stumble upon these books, they might catch those vibes as well.
It's very interesting for me to hear you talk about that, because I definitely wouldn't think, if they're always referring to a woman as like a brownie or a piece of chocolate. I mean, that seems so over the top. Like, I don't even think it doesn't even seem close, to be honest with you. Like, I'll tell you this, right? So my wife is a white person, and if I referred to her just even as like a dessert object or something, she would not be very happy about that, right? I mean, but I mean, that's even much further than that. I don't know. Yeah, it's just very interesting that you still see that. I guess it's not surprising, but it's when you posted that, I thought it was very, very interesting, and I wanted to know how much you encountered that in a way that I wouldn't notice it. So, thank you very much for showing that.
It's not something that I encounter a lot, and I've never encountered writing where I thought that the author was doing this on purpose. It's more like just their internal biases are just coming out in their writing. And that's everyone. Everyone has biases. We're human. It's just our job to like shine a mirror, look in the mirror, see where those biases are, and so that we can mitigate them as we communicate with the world. And it's even more important when we write, because we don't even know how many people we're going to touch. So.
Right, for sure. I think my internal bias is that if I were to see something like that, I would just assume it was really lazy writing, just really lazy writing, right? Because it's just like, I mean, you can stereotype a character for like any number of reasons. Race is one of them. But you can just any sort of stereotype you want to add. That's just easy, lazy writing.
Yeah,
it's just. I would put it down. You are much more determined than I am to finish so many books. Because like I said, I throw mine down for just totally lazy reasons that are just, if I'm not resonating with this, I can't finish it. So,
I mean, honestly, I don't like to not finish things in general. So I wish that I could apply that to everything. If I could, I would be finished book 2. But I am not yet. But if I start reading something, I like to give the person a chance, because I'd want somebody to give me a chance, maybe get past that part, see if it gets better, see if you like it more.
Hi, it's Rob Gatke. So if you're enjoying the show and looking for a way to support me and my writing, please consider buying a copy of my latest book and reviewing it on Amazon. The book is called The Pursuit of Being Noticed. It is a funny, fun adventure about a female lawyer and her sister and their mother. And it also has heart too, which I think is the most important thing about a good story. So if you're looking for something to read this weekend, please consider picking it up. And now back to our show.
So unless it's like,
well, I mean, I'm all for that, right? Like I read this past spring, I read Tolstoy's Anna Karenina, right? And I think you got to give that thing several hundred pages before it gets good. So I'm all for giving it a chance, but I don't know if it's just bad. Some things are just bad. I read something one time that said, or I don't know, maybe it was Harold Bloom or somebody was talking about how, there's just not enough hours in our lives to read bad books and we should just all throw them away. And so I understand what you're saying, but all right, I want to transition you into another TikTok video that I saw of you that I really liked. And this was a more recent one, actually. I think it's entitled Bad Thought. And so I don't know if you remember this one, but basically you say something like writers don't want to write, but often want to be those who have written. I'm paraphrasing here.
Yeah.
Right? But then you talk about how if you were to go into the future and meet your future self, you'd love to steal that novel, right? I imagine you're talking about the second novel here. You'd love to steal that novel and bring it back with you. But what if you found it wasn't finished? So talk about that. I want to hear about that. Why isn't your second novel done?
Oh my gosh. So I think it really came down to when I was finishing book one, I got really into it. Like, I'm going to be author. I'm going to put it all into there. And I started buying these classes. And I think I just kind of emotionally, mentally overwhelmed myself. And there was like some self-sabotage going on, some fear of success, fear of failure going on. And it was just like, I just didn't write for like a year. Like the whole pandemic, I barely wrote at all, which is sad because I had so much extra time. So yeah, it's on the way. Hopefully this year, early next year, it's coming.
All right. Is it going to be a sequel? Or
Yes.
Are we talking about a totally different series?
No, this is the sequel to Desponia. So it doesn't end on a hard cliffhanger. But there are some things that are left unresolved. And we pick back up in book 2. Desponia is intended to be a 5-book series. So I'm in it for the long haul.
So that's a good segue. So Ms. Goodman, so here's your chance for those out there who have not read Desponia yet. And I said it right, people. Desponia. Why should they read Desponia and what is the story really about?
People who enjoy reading fantasy or Greek mythology, especially retellings, I think you'll definitely enjoy this. We have all of the major casts will show their faces, if not in book 1, as the series progresses. We have Hera, we have Hades, Persephone. If you're tired of those two as a couple, we don't see too much of them. And then all the rest of the Greek cast that we love, and a whole bunch of Greek characters that we don't really get to talk about, like Desponia. We get to see Hecate, which is, kind of making a resurgence right now, the titaness of witchcraft. So she has a role in here as well that gets better as the series goes on. And if you just like coming of age stories, this is about a goddess who had to grow up on Earth that finally gets to go to Olympus, and she's just figuring out how to live life. And she just so happens to be a goddess. And I guess that's what the story really is about. Her figuring out who she is, who she wants to be, and just how can that person fit in this world that she is now in.
Well, I think it's amazing what I've read so far. It's amazing. And I think definitely people should buy it if you haven't bought it already and start reading it, because I mean, for me, it's, I will be honest and say it's the absolute first Greek mythology piece of fiction I have ever read. And you might say, but didn't you read like stuff in high school? And I will say, no, I did not read that stuff in high school. I was supposed to read that stuff in high school, but I don't think I was smart enough. And I do think that this is very readable. And so it's very relatable. And so I think you absolutely should get the book if you haven't gotten it already. Get it. Desponia, Goddess of Mystery.
Yeah.
Desponia. She's Ms. Goodman's gonna quit the interview, folks, because the interviewer can't say the name of the title right. All right, okay. I want to go to the lightning round here. Okay. Where we're gonna ask Ms. Goodman a few questions, and she's just gonna give us her gut reaction, pro or con to these different things. All right, are you ready, Ms. Goodman?
Yes.
Everybody loves this part of the game. All the viewers are just clamoring because they want to know the answers. All right, here we go. Question number 1. Plotter or pantser?
Plotter. No, pantser. Why am I lying? I'm a pantser.
She's lying, folks. She doesn't even know what she's supposed to say. Tell me, what is it?
A plotter. I wish.
Pants, you know what? You join good company, apparently, because every single person I've asked that question to is a pantser. So have you ever tried plotting?
Yes. The plot that I created for book 3 is already done and waiting for me to finish book 2. So I am trying this whole plotting thing, but I feel like pantsing is just, it's exciting. You're creating a story in the go. Like, you're as surprised as the reader is going to be. It's fun. It's more fun to me.
So what do you do? So I will just say that I have tried both methods, to varying degrees of success. The thing that I really struggle with pantsing, and maybe you can help me or tell me what you think about this, but I feel like I end up, number 1, either having conversations or scenes that are really sort of pointless. Like, they go into real good depth about things that just don't matter. Or number 2, I end up getting into places where I don't know how to get out of. These are just, I remember when I very first started, I was working with my brother. We were trying to come up with this story, and he was going to be the plotter and I was going to be the writer. Right. I mean, it's sort of the old, like, we'll split the profits. I'll do the plotting. You do all the work as the writing. Right. It's very unfair. But he came up with his plot and he gave it to me. And on the very first day, I started writing this thing. And then I decided midway through the scene that the main character had to die. And my brother just about lost his mind, right? Because he's like, the whole story is that guy, you just killed him. And I was like, well, that's where inspiration took me. I don't know what to say. So what do you do in your life when this happens, when you're pantsing?
Usually I just go with the flow. Just see where it can take me. I have a pretty strong idea where I need each book to end, because it's supposed to be 5 books now. It was, in my first draft, it was like one big giant book. So as I'm like making it make sense, I kind of just go with the flow. I know where I'm heading. So I have the mountain. I'm just walking towards the mountain. If I go a little off, as long as it's good, if I can just like get back to the mountain, I'll just, and then in editing, I'll worry about it. But when I'm writing, I just try to just be as free as possible. Just get the words out.
Question number 2, Apple or PC?
PC.
Smart lady. So I am a PC person too. All right. Everybody else is Apple. The whole world is Apple.
I know. And I love my Apple phone. I love my iPad, but I need Windows.
I agree. Number 3, what is your least favorite word or phrase that you see used in novels?
I don't know if I have one. And I think this is kind of ties back into the reason why I can finish a book. Because A, I'm pretty picky when I pick it up in the first place. And B, like, I'm kind of just reading for the story. All the rest of the stuff kind of just falls in the wayside. So I don't have one. I don't have one.
You're dodging it. You're dodging it. She knows. She knows what drives her crazy, but she won't tell us because she's too
I
polite.
don't
But all right,
know.
folks, we can't force her. We can't force her. All right, number 4. If you were marooned on a desert island and you could only take one fiction book with you, what would it be?
Trying to look at the bookcase. I don't know.
Folks, for those of you who can't see, she has like a huge library behind her. She's in like a mansion with like a
I
bookshelf with like
wish.
5,000 books. I'm
Um,
just kidding.
I'm gonna just say something in the In-Depth series by J.D. Robb. One of the early books, maybe Glory in Death. I'm just picking one at random, but I love that series, so just one of those.
All right. If you could write for a fictional character, someone else's fictional character, and this could be a book character, a movie character, who would you write for and why?
Oh, I do know, and I don't know the character's name, but one of my biggest pet peeves in literature, I can't call it a pet peeve, but one of my biggest issues is the ending of Harry Potter Book 7. I'm going to do a TikTok about it one day. So the character that I would like to write for is Lupin's son. I would like to write about him, his life, everything that we skipped over. I would like to write his life story.
All right, so I'm gonna put you on the spot here as someone who gave up on Harry Potter in about book 3 or so. What happens in book 7, and why do you want to do a TikTok? Here's your opportunity, Miss Goodman. Do it right here for us.
Air my grievances. Okay, so I am a Harry Potter fan. I read all of the books when I was in high school, and book 7 was good until like the last chapter. It just didn't give me what I needed. Okay, so the whole purpose of Harry Potter was that Harry Potter was abandoned. He was supposed to be able to go with his godfather Sirius, but he couldn't because Sirius was in jail. Okay. There's this perfect parallel between Harry being able to be the godfather to Lupin's baby because his parents died just like Harry's parents died. I'm rambling now, but if you see me, it's fine. If you don't, it's also fine. But there's such a perfect parallel between Harry's life and Lupin's son's life, who I can't remember his name. Lupin's son's life. There's such a beautiful parallel. I just wish that they would have ended the series, with us seeing Harry be the godfather to this boy that Sirius couldn't be to Harry.
All right, you heard it here, folks.
I aired it.
This is going to be first. Now, if she makes a TikTok about this, it will kind of be like a remake. It won't be as good. So there's it'll be a repeat. That was the word I was looking for. It won't be original. All right, if you could give the people listening one piece of advice, like the best piece of advice you've ever learned about writing, what do you think that would be?
Oh, this is horrible. Just because it's so basic, but I would say just write. There are a million reasons not to write, a million of them. And the only reason you need to write is because you want to. So just do it. Like, there's so many people in this world who can relate to, or just be inspired by, or just be entertained by what you have to write. Like, my mom, I talked about her before. She was a reader. She always wanted to write a book, and she never did because she didn't have enough money. She didn't have enough know-how. There's all these reasons, but the only thing you need to do is want to. Like, imagine, like, she has since passed, but like, I just imagine being able to have read her book, be able to have her book now when she's no longer with us. And I mean, it's an amazing gift that you can give to all the people who love you and people who will never meet you. So just do it. Just do it. It's great. It's hard, but it's worth it.
Where in Desponia are you? Are you in there?
There are parts of me dispersed through many characters. There definitely is quite a bit of me in Desponia. Also, I would say there's a little bit of me in Zipporah. She's actually who I want to be when I'm like an 80-year-old woman. I want to be Zipporah.
All right. So last question, as we're almost out of time here, which is slightly similar to one I asked before, but in some ways very different. So if you could give the people out there listening one piece of advice, and it doesn't have to be about writing, what would you tell them?
Be kind to yourself. Especially writers, we tend to be extremely self-critical. The world will criticize you. You need to encourage yourself. The world will tell you what you're not doing right. There will always be someone to kind of put a cap on it and show you what you're doing wrong. What you need to do for yourself is make sure that you're, feeding your soul, so to speak, making sure that you are you don't need to beat yourself up. The world can do that in spades.
Well, Ms. Goodman, it's been very nice talking with you. I've enjoyed our time together. And everyone out there, it's Desponia, Goddess of Mystery. It's an amazing book. It's Ms. Goodman's first published book. And there's the cover. Excellent. You can pick it up everywhere, right? KU for sure. If you're in KU, you can also buy it, which would get her a little bit more money. So you should do that. And also we are eagerly awaiting book 2 in the series, which hopefully she will have out soon. So Ms. Goodman, thank you very much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me.